Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. And we classified the Brhad Bhagavatamrta into Srila Prabhupada's books because, first of all, it was translated by one of his most dear devotees, senior Sanskritist, Gopi Paranadhana Prabhu, one of my best friends, who I spent a lot of time with when we were living in Govardhan together. And his passing away was a source of great grief and separation. I listened to him every day. I listened to two people every day, Prabhupada and Gopi Paranadhana Prabhu. Anyway, before we start our reading, we will recite the Srimad-Bhagavatam Mahima Stotram as we do every day when reading the Bhagavatam, or now, Brhad Bhagavatamrta. Srimad-Bhagavatam Mahima Stotram was written by Srila Sanatana Goswami, who's the author of Brhad Bhagavatamrta, and he's glorifying here in these 5 verses the Bhagavatam, which is the basis of the Brhad Bhagavatamrta. In fact, the Brhad Bhagavatamrta is the essence of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And it goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdipi Yusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad-Bhagavata Prabhu Kalidwan Dotita Ditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad-Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Mad Mahadana Mad Nishtadaka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadutadayin adini chuchatakara hanamunchakadachin mam premna rit gantayospuda. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me, always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, 6th chapter of the first part of Brhad Bhagavatamrta. Narada Muni has finally reached Dwarka in search of the devotee who has received the most mercy from Krishna, and he was recommended by the king, Ugrasena, to go and meet Uddhava. And because Uddhava is always with Krishna, he ends up in Krishna's palace. And there he inadvertently caused a discussion to happen among Uddhava and Baladev and Rohini and Rukmini and Satyabhama. about why Krishna stayed in bed, which he never does. And they're all worried, something's wrong, they don't understand. And they're talking about it. And the subject of the Brajbasis came up. And Padmavati is there also, the king, the wife of Ugrasena, who is the son of Kamsa. So this is a very interesting situation. And devotees are taking sides now. Some in favor of the Brajbasis, some against the Brajbasis for different reasons. Rukmini doesn't want, Krishna to go back to Braj, obviously, because she wants him to stay there, and Padmavati is adding some comical relief in her kind of silly way of suggestions, how to change the atmosphere. So there's where we stand. Krishna has come out, admitted his heart's hard like a diamond, and he's crying, and Baladev has given his final synopsis that Krishna is just cheating everyone. So it's a very, very intense spiritual, emotional situation. And that's where we come in today at text 676. Sri Parikshit said, although the personality of Godhead must have heard these words, that was Padmavati's words, he pretended he had not. Driven by sorrow, he then inquired from Uddhava, as though ignorant. Commentary. Not holding Padmavati's suggestions in high esteem, Krishna chose to ignore them. He knew very well what was required of him and what the Brajbasis wanted. But because of sharing the distress of his devotees, he seemed unaware of these things. He responded to his own discomfort by asking for Uddhava's advice. Text 77. The Supreme Lord said, O best of learned scholars, you know all the thoughts of the residents of Braj. Please tell me without delay what it is they desire. Commentary. This inquiry stems from Mother Devaki's proposal to offer the Brajbasis whatever they want. Krishna understands that no presentation of gifts will placate the devotees in Braj, since all they want from him is that he grace them with his presence. By approaching Uddhava, for counsel, however, Krishna is able to free himself of the responsibility for the decision. If Uddhava advises him to go to Vrindavan, no one will be able to stop him. What first drove Krishna to inquire from Uddhava was anxiety, but now a second reason for taking his opinion has come to Krishna's mind. Text 78. Sri Parikshit said, having heard these words from the Lord, the despondent Uddhava was taken aback. He sighed briefly and then answered, full of remorse. Commentary. In the extreme ecstasy of prema this state of affairs evoked, Uddhava's discrimination failed him. Not recognizing the intended meaning of Krishna's statement that he wanted to visit Braj, Uddhava instead took Krishna's words at face value and thought he wanted to placate his devotees with gifts. Thus Uddhava thought that Krishna, although all-knowing and supremely merciful, wanted to continue deceiving the Brajbasis. Uddhava was discouraged to see Krishna behaving like this with his loving devotees. Text 79. Srimad Uddhava said, the people of Braj don't want from you the power and wealth of emperors, nor the enjoyments found in heaven, nor anything else obtainable in this world or the next. They desire nothing else but you. Text 80. Kindly favor me with your attention. Think over what I am about to say, and then act as you see fit. Krishna's not going to get out of the responsibility. Text 81. Before, when the cowherds met Nanda and saw the jewels and other gifts you had sent with him, they spoke with one another, all of them immersed in an ocean of grief. Commentary. The event Uddhava is narrating occurred just after Krishna killed Kamsa. The jewelry Krishna sent was meant mainly for the women of Braj, the older gopis headed by Mother Yashoda, and the younger gopis headed by Sri Radhika. Uddhava, however, does not here disclose this confidential fact. Text 82. Oh, how very painful! Krishna now thinks we want such presents from him and deserve this kind of mercy. Commentary. Krishna seemed to have changed his attitude toward the Brajavasis. Previously, he would never have greeted them. He would never have treated them in such an apparently uncaring way. 83. Therefore damn our lives and the breath that still moves in our throats, and damn Nanda and the cowherd men. They should have left these things behind and instead brought Krishna himself. Commentary. Abandoned by Krishna, the devotees of Braj lived on the verge of death. Still, they condemned themselves for shamelessly holding on to the last breath of life in their throats while Krishna was absent. Affectionate Nanda, of course, could hardly have refused anything his son desired, but he should not have expected the Brajavasis to be satisfied with Krishna's material gifts. Text 84. Thus the residents of Braja, including your mother Yashoda, gave up all hope of your return. Already dead, now they refused to eat at all. Commentary. Along with Yashoda, the Brajavasis have begun to fast to death, refusing to touch even water. Text 85 and 86. Nanda felt like someone who has committed a great offense, and for 3 days he was so utterly miserable he couldn't say a thing. But then, to save the lives of the residents of Braja, he induced those people to believe your departing words. With many ardent promises, Nanda skillfully used logic to prove your words true. In this way, he placated the Brajavasis. Commentary. To assure Krishna that his devotees in Braja were still holding on to life, Uddhava describes in these verses how Nanda Maharaj, knowing that his responsibility was to encourage the others, pulled himself out of depression and reminded the Brajavasis of Krishna's promise to return. Soon after killing Kamsa, Krishna had sent Nanda home from Mathura with this assurance: Yata yujam rajam tata vayam cha sneha dukritam dukitan yatin vo drashtamishayam ashamo vidhaya suridam sukam. Now, dear Father, you should all return to Braja. We shall come to see you, our dear relatives who suffer in separation from us, as soon as we have... Now, dear Father, you should all return to Braja. We shall come to see you, our dear relatives who suffer in separation from us, as soon as we have given some happiness to your well-wishing friends. Bhagavatam 10:45-23. Nanda used the best arguments he could devise to persuade the Brajavasis that Krishna still intended to keep his word. Text 87. Sri Nanda said, "Our son is an honest person who always speaks the truth. He has first sent us these things as tokens of his love. He is sure to come back to us quickly as soon as he finishes what he has to do in Mathura." Commentary. For Nanda, Krishna will always be his son, regardless of Vasudev's claim. And Nanda believes his son is honest. And Nanda believes that his son is honest. Krishna sent the gifts not as a calculated attempt to manipulate the sentiments of the Brajvasis, but simply out of love. As Krishna promised, he is certain to return. He has been delaying in Mathura for so long because of the many obligations he has to fulfill there, like removing the threat of Jarasandha. These will take a little more time to complete, and then he will come back to home, to Braja. Text 88. The residents of Braja, all simple-hearted people, trusted Nanda's words, thinking about your loving affection. They accepted the jewelry and put it on their bodies. Commentary. The Brajavasis felt no special pleasure in adorning their bodies with this jewelry, but they did it anyway to satisfy Krishna. It was not in their nature to doubt other people's motives, and they found it especially hard to distrust Krishna. Text 89. They thought, when Sri Krishna returns, he will see how we have followed his order by accepting these remnants of his enjoyment. Then he will show us special mercy. Commentary. The Brajavasis consider themselves already recipients of Krishna's mercy, but they know that his mercy can always increase. The more they please him by their exclusive surrender, the more he will favor them. Therefore, just to please Krishna, they feign happiness even in their greatest misery. Text 90. But you never came. You sent me instead. And when they heard the message you had sent with me, they almost died from disappointment. Commentary. Uddhava complains that although the Braja devotees acted with simple honesty, Krishna reciprocated in a completely contrary way. To send through Uddhava a message telling the Brajavasis to be satisfied with meditating on him as the all-pervading Supersoul was nothing less than a cruel deception. In the message Uddhava read, Krishna told them, Bhavati nam viyogo me nahi sarvatmana kvachit yata bhutani bhuteshu kam vayagnir jalam mahi tatachaham manak prana bhudindriya gunashaya. You were never actually separated from me, for I am the soul of all creation, just as the elements of nature, ether, air, fire, water, and earth, are present in every created thing. So am I, present within everyone's mind, life, air, intelligence, and senses, and also within the physical elements and the modes of material nature. Bhagavatam 10:47-29. This message from Krishna shattered the Brajvasis' hope of his returning. Text 91. Seeing them so despondent, I made every effort to keep them alive by promising you would surely come back. Then I returned here. 92. To attain you, these devotees then renounced all enjoyment of the senses and all material shelter. Please, ask your elder brother here what state they are in. Commentary. And after all this, Krishna only sent Balaram instead of going to Braja himself. Uddhava is loath to describe the effect upon the Brajavasis of Krishna's failure to visit them again, because hearing it will be too painful for Krishna himself and everyone else present. After Uddhava's visit to Braja, the residents totally gave up gratifying their senses and abandoning their homes to wander in the forests. While describing Lord Balaram's trip to Gokula, the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, 1065-6 says, Krishne Kamala Patrakshe Sanyasata Kilaradishaha. The Brajbasis renounced all material possessions for the sake of the lotus-eyed Krishna. When Krishna had come to Vrindavan earlier, he had seen the gopis headed by Sri Radhika in a different state, happy and decorated with fine jewelry, the same ornaments Nanda had brought back from Mathura. The 10th canto, 1046, 45 and 46, describes what Uddhava saw upon arriving in Braja. Pulling on the churning ropes with bangled arms, the women of Braja shone with the splendor of their jewels, which reflected the light of the lamps. Their hips, breasts, and necklaces moved about, and their faces, anointed with reddish kumkum, glowed radiantly, the luster of their earrings reflecting from their cheeks. As the ladies of Braja loudly sang the glories of lotus-eyed Krishna, their songs, blended with the sound of their churning, ascended to the sky and did away with all inauspiciousness in every direction. Upon hearing Uddhava's message, however, the mood of the Braja residents changed. Their hope for Krishna's return was destroyed, and they became more unhappy than before Nanda had consoled them. Uddhava suggests that Krishna can ask Balaram about the current state of the Brajavasis, which Balaram has seen with his own eyes. Even if you doubt my words, Uddhava implies, surely you will believe your elder brother. The pressure's on. Hare Krishna. Text 93 and 94. Sri Parikshit continued, from the dread of the great pain of separation from Krishna, the faces of the ladies like Devaki and Rukmini were pale, downcast, and full of tears. Looking at those women affectionately, gentle-hearted Krishna quickly gestured for an inkpot and paper. Commentary. Krishna was so shaken by Uddhava's statements that he was unable to speak. He could make known his desire for pen and paper only by gesturing. But if Krishna was so anxious about the Brajavasis, why did he not go to Vrindavan at once? Because Krishna is soft-hearted, incapable of making his devotees suffer. He was reluctant to have Mother Devaki and his other beloved devotees who were in Dwarka. He was reluctant to leave Mother Devaki and his other beloved devotees who were in Dwarka. Text 95 and 96. Krishna meant to strengthen the faith of his Braja devotees by sending him a letter filled with loving sentiments and written by his own hand. My dear friends, please know that as soon as I settle the duties before me and satisfy my relatives here, I will return in no time. I will be there. Text 97. Uddhava surmised what Krishna was about to do and was therefore greatly distressed. Knowing the inner hearts of the Brajavasis, he cried and begged Krishna to reconsider his plans. Text 98. Srimad Uddhava said, O Master, please turn your attention to this. Unless your two lotus feet make a blessed journey to Braja? There is no way to assure that your people of Braja will survive. Those people want nothing but your lotus feet. Commentary. A mere letter will not save the Brajbasis from destruction. They do not want a letter from Krishna. They want Krishna himself. Asya jived Brajaha. Braja belongs to Krishna alone. The devotees living in Braja recognize as worshipable only Krishna, not the Supersoul or any other form of God. Text 99. Sri Parikshit said, the befuddled mother of Kamsa laughed at this, shook her head, and burst out, "Aha! Aha, foolish Devaki, now I understand. I understand everything." Commentary. Padmavati laughed to belittle Uddhava's words and uttered hum, hum, to show that she was thinking deeply and was unhappy. Text 100. With the help of your Uddhava, whom the cowherds have long controlled by gifts of milk goods, those cowherds want to bring Krishna back to the forest. Text 101. In that dangerous forest, hard to travel and full of thorns and vicious beasts, those good-for-nothings want to make him tend their cows. Commentary. It is true that Uddhava had stayed in Vrindavan much longer than needed to deliver Krishna's message, as confirmed in Srimad-Bhagavatam 10:47-54. Uddhava stayed there several months, dispelling the gopis' sorrow by chanting the topics of Lord Krishna's pastimes. Thus he brought joy to all the people of Gokula. Padmavati here accuses Nanda and the other Brajbasis of enticing Uddhava to prolong his stay by filling him with buttermilk and other milk products. She calls the Brajbasis scoundrels for wanting to use someone else's son for dangerous work in a forest full of tigers, lions, and other wild animals. Text 102. Sri Parikshit said, Balaram's mother Rohini, Yashoda's dear friend, couldn't tolerate hearing these insults. Angrily, she replied. Sri Rohini said, "Indeed, dear mother of Kamsa, will they just engage him in caring for cows? Unless the devotees there see him, they can't stay alive a single moment." 104. O virtuous lady, if trees or other obstacles block Krishna from sight, even briefly, his companions at once shed tears and call in anxious, drawn-out voices, Sri Krishna, Krishna. 105. For those who live in Braja, daytime is like the black night at the end of the universe, and the blink of an eye, a millennium. In such a state they look at the sun and the trails of dust on the road again and again, and listen for the sound of the flute. Commentary. Rohini's calling Padmavati a virtuous lady, Sati, is sarcastic, because everyone knows that her virtue was spoiled by the demon Drumila. She therefore should not be so bold as to present herself as an authority on how to serve Krishna. Why does she imagine that the Brajabasis wanted to make Krishna constantly slave for them in the distant forests? The Brajabasis rather want to see Krishna all the time. When he leaves them in the mornings to tend the cows in the forest, time passes for them slowly and painfully, especially for Sri Radhika and the other young gopis. In the gopis' own words, when you go off to the forest during the day, a tiny fraction of a second becomes like a millennium for us, because we cannot see you. and even when we can eagerly look upon your beautiful face, so lovely with its adornment of curly locks, our pleasure is hindered by our own eyelids, which were fashioned by the foolish Creator. Bhagavatam 10:30, 1:15. Even the boys headed by Sri Dhamma, who accompany Krishna in watching the cows, become anxious when Krishna disappears momentarily behind a tree or any other obstruction. The Brajavasis waiting back in Nanda Maharaj's village glance frequently up at the sun to see whether it is time for Krishna to come home. They look down the road on the horizon to see if dust is being raised by the returning cows. From time to time, they hear a few notes from Krishna's distant flute. The Brajavasis are driven almost to insanity, realizing that for hours he will not return. How, therefore, can Padmavati reason that the Brajavasis will want to exploit Krishna by keeping him working constantly in the forest? Text 106. Every day Krishna takes his older brother with him and goes out into the various forests, eager to enjoy with his herds of cows and wander about in the company of his many friends. Commentary. Brajadama has many attractive forests in which Krishna loves to play with his friends. His favorite among those forests is Vrindavan, the forest of Sri Vrindadevi, the original ruler of Braja. Every day, Krishna is eager to go out into the forests where he enjoys ever-fresh pastimes. The daily adventures of Krishna, Balaram, and their friends are an endless festival of wonderful sights and surprises. Text 107. In those forests are lakes with sparkling water, where Kamala and Utpala lotuses spread their fragrance. The lotuses tremble from the movements of swarms of bees, stirred up by rows of excited water birds. Text 108. And in those forests flows the river Yamuna, the dearmost companion of the land of Braja. The picturesque splendor of that river, the daughter of Kalinda, astonishes the mind. And besides her, Brajabhumi glistens with other rivers, the offspring of hills like the Vindhyas. Commentary. The glorious Yamuna flows in the midst of Brajabhumi, and during Krishna's manifest presence, some of her branches flowed in parts untouched by her today. Thus, many of the forests of Krishna's land were graced by Sri Yamuna's water and her grassy tree-lined banks. Other splendid rivers, like the Manasi Ganga, also passed through Brajabhumi. Text 109. The beautiful shores of those rivers are always heaped with soft sand and covered by newly grown grass. To those shores come many different kinds of charming animals and birds who put their natural enmity aside. Commentary. So much for Padmavati's harsh description of the forests of Braj as impenetrable, terrifying places full of beasts of prey and difficult for the grazing of cows. Text 110. Trees, vines, and creepers further decorate the shores, bowing down with the weight of splendid flowers, fruits, and leaves. The shores resound with the calls of maddened peacocks and cuckoos, and those shores receive praise even from Lord Brahma. Commentary. After being defeated in trying to outwit Krishna, Brahma offered this glorification of the forests of Braja. My greatest possible good fortune would be to take any birth whatsoever in this forest of Gokula, and have my head bathed by the dust falling from the lotus feet of any of its residence. Their entire life and soul is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mukunda, the dust of whose lotus feet is still being searched for in the Vedic mantras. Bhagavatam 10:14-34, text 111. Vrindavan forest, Govardhan hill, and the whole area of Braja are free from violence and theft. So one need not bother to watch one's cows. The cows simply go out into the forests in the morning with the other domestic animals like the buffaloes, eat grass and drink water as they like, and in the evening come home. Commentary. Tending cows is difficult work even in the present surroundings, but in Braja, the labor of herding turns into play. Krishna and his friends effortlessly cared for many cows and also other domestic animals, including buffaloes and goats. While the cowherd boys were completely absorbed in playing, their cows wandered far away. The cows hungered for more grass, and with no one to watch them, they entered a dense forest. The goats, cows, and buffaloes passed from one part of the forest to another. Bhagavatam 10:19, 1 and 2. Because all these sacred spots of Braja are under the special protection of the demigods and other servants of Sri Sri Radha, Krishna, evil influences can never prevail. For example, the village of Nanda Maharaj is protected by Lord Shiva in the form of Nandishwar. Lord Shiva begged for this service of guarding Krishna's home and showed his gratitude for the appointment by giving the blessing that Nandishwar hill in Nandagram on its peak would never be attacked by Rakshasas. Many followers of Kamsa were able to harass the cowherds of Braja and try in various ways to kill Krishna and Balaram. But that happened only by the arrangement of Krishna's Yogamaya to enhance the pleasure of Krishna in his pastimes with his devotees. None of these would be violators of the peace of Braja. None of these would-be violators of the peace of Braja could cause any real harm other than their own deaths. Hare Krishna. In modern times, criminals and various materialistic influences seem to have infiltrated Sri Brajadam, but that is only a superficial appearance to our unpurified eyes. Yogamaya still protects the Dham from invasion by Krishna's enemies. Materialistic persons may briefly come and go on the thin surface by which Maya covers the Dham from unworthy eyes. They may even construct permanent commercial buildings and roads, but the actual eternal abode remains untouched by their transient interference. To the pure devotees who come to reside in Vrindavan Dham, the same Yogamaya grants the vision by which they can see the divine truth. 112. Elderly Padmavati said, "You child, you are too free with your words. If what you say is true, then why do we hear that the cows and other animals in Braja are now in danger of dying because no one is taking care of them?" This Padmavati is too much. Commentary. Actually, the cows, bulls, and calves of Braja needed no caretaker. Rather, they needed Krishna. They suffered not from material neglect, but from the ecstasy of separation, vipralamba bhava. They appeared in danger of dying, but even that appearance was false, because vipralamba bhava is a cause not of death, but of the highest perfection of life, achieved only by the most intelligent and competent of those who practice spiritual disciplines. The cows of Braja were in fact not the dumb, helpless creatures they seemed. Padmavati, however, is as usual following her strange style of logic to prove her own understanding of Krishna. Text 113. Sri Parikshit said, having heard all this, the blessed Lord Gopal felt overwrought with worry for his devotees. Scorching anxiety dried up his lotus face. He was filled with dread. Text 114. He glanced at the face of Baladev, who knew all the tidings of Braja, both past and present, and he saw that it was covered with tears. Commentary. Baladev, Krishna's older brother, was a constant witness to Krishna's pastimes, first in Vrindavan and then in Mathura and Dwarka. Krishna trusted Baladev to be a sober judge of facts. So when Krishna saw the face of Baladev, his own anxiety only increased. And we'll stop there. Hare Krishna. It's like an emotional roller coaster. Spiritual emotions dragging us here and there. Okay, we'll stop here, and tomorrow we will hear from Baladev and what's going to happen next, which is an incredible pastime. Hare Krishna. Okay, it's 8 o'clock. If anybody's still conscious, maybe you could give us a reflection or a comment or a discussion to bring us out of this stupor of ecstasy.
First is something from Krishnangi Mulder.
Krishnangi.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I'm reflecting upon Krishna's gift giving and how it was stated that he did so out of love, not some manipulative motive. Seems an important point to contemplate. I shall have an honest look at the way I interact with others and see if it is tainted with any subtle manipulative intent. Have you some thoughts around this and how it can harm spiritual growth and Vaishnava relationships?
Well, first of all, you're thinking that what's going on is a bad thing. But there's nothing that's happening right now in this pastime that's a bad thing. This is the actions of the spiritual emotions. And although they appear to be mundane emotions, they have nothing to do with mundane emotions. They are expressions of the purest and most ecstatic love of Godhead. But because we see things through our eyes, our conditioned eyes, we listen to the words and we take them literally. But if you want to understand them, then contemplate this, that if you want to go back to the spiritual world, you have to become so attached to Krishna that you can't live for a moment without him. And this is what Krishna does. He brings all of his devotees to the threshold of intense anticipation of his leaving, or actually his separation. And it's all meant to bring their love to crescendo feelings, intense feelings of love that cannot be experienced in this material world. But the only way that we can actually be eligible to go there is to hear these pastimes, and then, as we advance in devotional life, to emulate or try to follow in the footsteps of these devotees and awaken our deep feelings of separation from Krishna. This was Lord Chaitanya's mission, to show by his personal example how to develop perfection in Krishna consciousness. He came, he was born, he had very interesting pastimes in his childhood. He took sannyas. He went around all over India preaching, convincing the most die-hard Mayavadis to become devotees of Krishna, and to show that the way forward toward these loving feelings is to actually be compassionate upon the materialists and give them Krishna consciousness. And then, when he was ready, then he stayed in Jagannath Puri and relished the highest transcendental feelings of Srimati Radharani's love for Krishna. These pastimes that we're hearing now are the kinds of things that Lord Chaitanya would meditate upon and go into ecstatic trance about. So then, rather than try to imitate how we're going to feel when a friend gives us a gift, or we give a gift to a friend, of whether or not it's manipulative or not, we should follow in the footsteps of the Brajbasis and love Krishna no matter what is happening. Hare Krishna.
Next is something from Vamsi Vilasi.
Haribo Vamsi Vilasi.
Jai Maharaj. So many inconceivable things happening here. Uddhava's awkward situation in having to appease the Vrajvasis on Krishna's behalf. Padmavati's bewildering take on Krishna in Vrindavan, which is somehow a form of devotional service, and the Vrajvasis' intense suffering in Krishna's absence. These are all so different from what I consider devotional service to be.
Well, Lord Chaitanya taught us, you serve Krishna while you're remembering and developing your intense feelings of love and separation. That is the process for going back home, back to Godhead. So if you think that these personalities are suffering, then you will never get there. You will never go there, as long as you're thinking that they're suffering. They're not suffering at all. They're tasting the highest forms of transcendental pleasure. Inside, they're completely ecstatic. So if we just think of things, externally and superficially, then we won't be able to understand and won't be able to learn how to think like this when we're serving Krishna in deep separation, in intense desire and anxiety to help others come to Krishna. Because Krishna's lotus feet, as are being explained here right in front of our ears, are the only things that will satisfy either the Dwarkavasis or the Brajavasis. But try to remember, this is the Prakat Leela. I explained this either yesterday or the day before. In Prakat Leela, Krishna goes from one place to another and another. And he appears not to be in Braj when he goes, but he's never not in Braj. He's with them all the time and still having pastimes with them. But they're thinking that it's just a dream. But in the spiritual world, all these pastimes are going on simultaneously. If this isn't what we're hearing bewildering enough, then listen to this. They're going on simultaneously. And Krishna appears to go to Mathura to kill Kamsa again and again and again. And each time he does, it's like it happened for the first time. Because there is no time in the spiritual world. In the material world, time is linear. And once something has happened, you can never get it back. But in the spiritual world, if something happens, you can relive it. No problem. All your desires will be fulfilled by being in the spiritual world. Hare Krishna.
Next is something from Rati Manjari.
Hey Rati, Hare Krishna.
She says, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. Indeed, a spiritual roller coaster. Thank you for lifting the curtain to this amazing transcendental world. There is so much which has entered my ears, too much to speak of. One small thing which I noticed is that Krishna chose not to value the comments of Padmavati, and therefore he ignored them. What a good example.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite things because she's so unreasonable. But it has a place in the Leela. It doesn't seem like you can take any more of this emotion. And then Padmavati says something to just lighten it up or make a joke. It's amazing drama when you think about it. And all the elements, in other words, all the elements that we see here are there in the spiritual world. Except they're real. They cause only increasing love of Krishna. There's nothing else going on there except increasing love for Krishna. And once you get that through your head or into your heart and here with that knowledge, with that proper understanding, then they come to life and they can make us wonder and yearn to be able to be there with them. Hare Krishna. But to do that, we have to give up sense gratification. We have to give up all kinds of material desires and material ambitions and make it our ambition to serve Krishna. From wherever we are on the spectrum of advancing in Krishna consciousness, from the beginning to the end, and there is no end, and there is no beginning, because we're not the body. The body will come and go. The bodies will come and go, but we will still be there eternally. And the only way that we can have that ultimate realization is by going back home, back to Godhead, to be with Krishna. But because all these emotions are a part of the unlimited variety of living souls, they show themselves in Braj, and in Dwarka, and in Mathura also, in the most wonderful ways. And that's what we're hearing. Just how wonderful Krishna is, just how attractive Krishna is, and how intense the relationships are among the devotees and with Krishna. In all variety, all the range of emotions and loving exchanges and misunderstanding, and it's all there, just like it is here. But there, the result is increasing, intense, excruciating love of Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Krishnangi Mulder says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
am appreciative. Ukti Tantra says Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Ukti.
Rati Manjari says Padmavati is definitely broadening the spectrum of the conversation.
Oh yeah.
And from Dayal Nitai,
Jai Dayal Nitai, Hare Krishna.
he says, Dear Srila Guru Maharaj, please accept my obeisance. Hope you are very well. Did I understand correctly that in the spiritual world, Sri Krishna is also killing Kamsa and Mathura, and then other demoniac personalities? Thank you, your servant.
No, there's no killing that goes on. There's no killing. There's no death in the spiritual world. But it's a part of the pastime. So, as Prabhupada said, at different times, they imagine these things are happening. Yoga Maya arranges for these things to happen so that the devotees in the spiritual world get to taste the range of spiritual emotions in love for Krishna. But there are forms of demons that come there. We'll read about this in the second part of Brhad Bhagavatamrta, when Gopakumar actually goes to Goloka Vrindavan and sees for himself what's going on. And Keshi comes, and Kalya comes. It doesn't describe all of them. Of course, every day Krishna was there. These things were happening when he was on his Prakat Leela in Vrindavan, in Bhumi Vrindavan. But in the spiritual world, yes, they go on. But it doesn't happen in the same way. They're not killed or driven away. They become the playthings of the Brajbasis. They ride Keshi like a horse, like a ride in a carnival or something. Hare Krishna. He dances, with the gopis on the hoods of Kaliya. Rasa dance. Hare Krishna.
Vamsi Vilasi says, Thank you, Maharaj, for a wonderful answer. You touched on the link between feeling separation and preaching, which also came up when we were reading Madhya Lila a few weeks ago.
Yes.
Radha Raman said it's something I will have to live through to understand.
Yes. Correct.
Dharnita says, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, and it's 8:17, so I have to take rest. So thank you again and again for your lovely comments, and you're bringing out, I don't know how to say this, but you're bringing out feelings in me that I haven't felt in a long time, since I was very close with this book when we were editing the book itself. So yeah, I'm being refreshed. I'm reminded by those memories when we first heard it. So thank you very much. Shri Brhad Bhagavatamrta ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. It was nice that we heard Chaitanya Charitamrita just before this. Yes, that's how we get there, through the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, preaching Krishna consciousness. See you tomorrow night, same time, same place, same topic. The creme de la 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 creme. And it's never going to end. See you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.